Hey guys. Hey everyone, welcome to my porch. I guess today's Friday, so it's kind of happy weekend. So, hey Brienne, hey Angel, hey Marsha, hi Cheryl, hi Nicole. So I'll just wait for you guys to pop on. And so yeah, just refresh the homepage. And so hopefully this is a good time and people can tune in as well. And it looks like we have a couple stories too for spiritual awakening. So cool. Brienne says, "Good morning, Megan and everyone. I hope y'all are having a wonderful day so far." Yay, we are. Yeah, it's super nice weather today. Uh I should probably make some plans to do something outside, but it's really nice where I am. So yeah. A couple things before we start. So I have done like videos on Patreon, like Patreon guidelines, and I've made videos that I posted to my YouTube channel, and I think I called it something like boundaries and information. So, hey Tom. So, if like on my Patreon channel, right, like I'm opening myself up to people, and basically the intention behind it is to help grow and evolve, right? If you come onto my Patreon channel and are basically a distraction, I will block you. And the reason is because this is my house, right? And so you know my door is open, you're invited to my house, but if you come into my house and take a shit in my living room, you won't be invited back, right? So, and I have to have those. Everyone has boundaries. Boundaries are a good thing. It means that you have self-respect. Like people that I'm friends with in real life, like I have boundaries for how they treat me and vice versa, right? So, and I have a moderator on YouTube who will block people. And the reason is because people go on channels, or people come onto my channel or this channel to sometimes to distract, or for whatever reason, really on a high level, everybody really wants help, but I find it can be distracting. And I'll give one example is people asking me on dates or saying like weirdly perverted things. Okay, that's happened more than once, more than twice. And so those people I will block. So I have to have those boundaries in place, and that's why they're there. I think that makes sense to most people. So um Um, so we'll start with Angel. Angel says, Megan, lately I am in either a theta or delta state and come out when someone is about to kill me. I go to sleep with happy thoughts and into meditation with joyful intentions. Any idea what this means? Is this happening in your sleep or when you're meditating? Um, can you clarify, Angel? Hey, Marielle. Thanks. Love back to you. Hey, Marsha. Thanks for generously offering us weekly live chats. You are the best of the best. Thanks, Marsha. Cheryl says, you have told others in the live they are up for some personal success. How does this feel to you? And can you also tell if they are about to go through a rough time? Would you say? Like if I read people, it feels like, so this is the thing, like with psychic abilities, right? So we have the mind is a machine basically. And the best psychic or intuitive hit you'll get on someone comes from feeling, comes from like being in the body. It's hard. um this There's a lot of good examples of this in the spiritual community, but reading people from the mind, it looks like very ungrounded, if that makes sense. Like it's ungrounded is the only way that I can think of it. So it's best, or it works best, when you figure out a way to be in your body, and then like you might get psychic impressions, or you might get the feel, like I'll get the feeling first, and then I'll start to see the image or words or whatever it is. It's tuning into a feeling or like a radio station, right? And then when there's psychic abilities too, when someone's just reading in the mind, a lot of psychic people spend a lot of time in the mind. And that's fine, but that's how things and people can get like really confused. It's you can the imagination can go off on a tangent, right? So and what also exists in the mind, if you're not aware of, remember how I keep talking about, if you can see the part of the brain, like, I'm going to sound like a weirdo, but whatever. um I say that too often, but the part of the brain that is the ego part of the brain that's thinking, and basically, we've all been given these programs, expectations, paradigms in the ego brain. If you're able to come out of that and observe the ego brain and realize that you are not the mind, and then pick up psychic impressions or intuitive information, it will be even more accurate, because when you read people from the ego, it's going to be filtered through your own like trauma and pain, if that makes sense. So that's where I think people sometimes can channel things that come really distorted. Maybe they have entities, maybe not, but it's coming through their own traumatized experiences. So like information, like, all the enlightened people are going to make it and some people will not, or stuff like that. That's coming from the ego. It's the illusion of separation. It takes courage. I haven't really mentioned it before, but it takes courage to see things from the eyes of source, or from the eyes of your soul, because that means that you have to let go of the ego, and the ego wants control, right? So it's like it's kind of like a challenge, but it takes a lot of courage to do that, because the ego brain is not going to want to let you lose control, or for it to lose control. um People's handles are different on Patreon than they are on YouTube, because this is going through YouTube. So it's funny. It's funny because I didn't realize Mac Danny was Danielle on Patreon. Every time I try to lose weight, I don't make any progress and then give up. Is there a blockage that I can clear to help, or am I just lazy? Let me get a drink first. I've got my kombucha. Love kombucha. I have so much kombucha. It feels like, first of all, okay, getting to the root of of the problem, because there's many layers to wanting to lose weight, right? Like, I want to lose weight so I can move around easier, exercising is more comfortable, I'm more comfortable in my body. And then there's also body image stuff of, looking or feeling a certain way. And it feels like, and by the way, like, everybody has different genetics. So there's some people that can eat, like, and this is just, I don't know if our science has proven this, so I'm not going to cite science, but this is what I think. Okay. I don't have any articles to cite, but there's so many different genetics on planet Earth that some people are genetically predispositioned to be a certain weight, and some people are to be a certain weight. And so some people can eat like 6,000 calories a day and never work out, and they'll always be like 100 pounds, right? Some people, they can't eat that much and they will gain weight. So I think there's just genetics to, like, there's a genetic predisposition. But So this is the thing. Everybody, like the creator doesn't make mistakes, right? So everybody chose the perfect body to be incarnated into at this time, right? So it even from a very high level, this transcends all dimensions, all densities, because some people are like, I'm a star seed and I came from 5D or wherever. Or I was stuck in the reptilian reincarnation matrix and I was forced into my body. From a very high level, everything is a choice, right? So we all chose our bodies. And so therefore, we don't need to um they're just perfect the way they are, basically. So when I tune into it feels like there's it feels like this may have come from mom, of trying to look a certain way or trying to fit into a certain category or trying to fit into a box. That's what I feel like. So to me, that means that there's some sort of idea about the body or what the body is supposed to look like, and you keep the mind wants to fit into that box, or the mind wants to fit into that paradigm, basically. So that's what I feel. That's what I feel it is, right? And so there's this thing, the mind is part of the body, but the mind is also a computer. So if we keep telling the body it's not the way it's supposed to be, it's not the way it's supposed to be, it's the body is going to receive mixed messages, and what you're going to get is confusion. And so therefore it will be hard to lose weight, because the body's like, ugh. It's like the image that I'm getting is, it's like trying to, you want to go to this website, right? So you're going to type in your laptop, facebook.com. I don't even have Facebook. No. But facebook.com, or you type in the web address and then you get the result, right? Instead, it feels like, Danny, you're typing all over the computer and pressing enter, and that's what you're getting. So that's what I can pick up on it. So going back to really picking up on the intention of, why do I want to lose weight? And is there, when you listen to your mind, is the mind saying that there's something wrong with the body, your body looks ugly, or it's not the way it's supposed to be? Because this is all a complex or a programming of the mind, right? And so it feels like this was an impression that you picked up from mom and recreated as your own. So what you can do is, when is the earliest you started to feel this way? And ask your higher self or your guides or whoever to show you this version of yourself. It could be from a past life, it could be from this life. Usually it happens, or it's reinforced when we're in childhood, right? So like, yeah, that's what I can feel. Danny says, I'm 300 pounds, so that is unacceptable. But why is it unacceptable? See, I understand where you're coming from, right? But this is also a programming of the mind. So the body knows what weight it prefers to be. And so the mind right now is giving mixed messages to the body, and the body's like, eh. So if you clear the mind, the body will say, you know what, I'm going to vibrate faster. I'm not being jammed, right? And then the weight will come off, right? So this is something, it's something that's coming from the mind. And valid, right? I'm not saying it's not valid, but when your brain says those things, ask it why. Keep asking it why. Angel Angel said Angel said both. Okay, let me read your question again. I'm gonna drink all my kombucha and then I'm not gonna have any more. Angel says, lately I am in either a theta or delta state and come out when someone is about to kill me. I go to sleep with happy thoughts and into meditations with joyful intentions. Any idea what this means? it feels like when you feel your energy, Angel, when you feel yourself, where are you spending the majority of your time? What does it feel like when you're sitting in your body? Where are you spending the majority of your time? You're welcome, Danny. Just try it. And maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it won't. Um How can I know what blockage I have? I feel I'm in a rut but don't know how to go about it. Yeah, so basically blockages are basically they're created in the mind, right? So and usually it happens in the first, so it's a belief of the mind that blocks all of our energy from coming into our body. So it's basically it's only the mind blocking you. So it's not necessarily knowing about like where it is or which chakra. That's not necessarily so important. But why? So also to note, the spiritual path, there's this idea that like, oh, you're gonna have it all figured out and then you'll be so dialed in. And it's actually the opposite, right? Like the mind or the brain or the ego, right, is like, yeah, like it wants money and everyone's gonna like me and love me and everything's gonna be great and I'm gonna have the perfect body. And as I go along my spiritual awakening, I'm going to become like super psychic and then I'm going to know everything. And it's actually like more of the opposite. Like the spiritual path is not for the weak, like, or the, what's that saying? The faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart because it's actually very challenging to the ego. Those are all things that make the ego feel very comfortable, right? So along the spiritual path, there's all these videos of Dark Night of the Soul. And like at one point in my spiritual awakening, I got the impression that the Dark Night of the Soul only happens once. And like it actually never stops. Like you're constantly transforming and transcending energy and moving along and becoming lighter and lighter and lighter, right? So this is something. So when you say I am in a rut but don't know how to go about, what does that mean? Does that mean, I don't have all the money, I don't have this, I don't have that? What does that mean when you say I'm in a rut? um I lost my place in the chat. Tom said, I have been doing the frequency healing, setting an intention at the beginning. Very helpful. Angel says most. So I asked Angel where your energy is, or where does it in your body when you feel like in your body, like is your energy is your energy in your feet? Is it in your knees? Is it in your mind? Is it in your throat? Where do you feel like most of your energy is, Angel? Because that's really the you that is you. It's not the body. So that's why I'm asking the question: is where do you feel like you are in the body? Hey, Lori. Ooh, Southern California. Okay, let me just go to the Patreon homepage and answer some of those questions really quick. Okay, let's start. Sandra says, why do we get visions of future events we can't stop? I had a vision of the NASCAR crash that killed Dale Earnhardt about 2 weeks prior to the crash. Why when we can't stop them? Read lots of stories of people who saw the 9/11 towers go down. Why, when we can't stop events like those, do we see them? Is it just a personal lesson, or do we trust what we see? Well, I think that there's a belief that every time someone sees a vision, that it's coming from a divine source. And a lot of times you're picking up on the collective consciousness, like the astral layers, or it's your own imagination, or it's your own fear, or it's just coming from you. So, so it's not that there's always a purpose of seeing a vision, right? Like, you could also, the mind, when it's clear enough, you'll start to see things like a movie, and it's just the brain responding to stimuli and making a movie out of it. I don't know why. And so it's just, that's just what the mind does, basically. So I don't think that there's always a reason, or like a divine reason, for seeing things. I think that the brain is just like a computer, and that's what it does. But I'm trying to think. I mean, sometimes it can be just to prepare you. Like, I've picked up on feelings where someone was going to pass away and stuff like that. And I just feel like you're picking up on that person's auric field, that it's not necessarily it's just an impression that you're getting. The story, read lots of stories about people who saw the 9/11 towers go down. Well, this is the thing about psychological operations. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. But the thing about psychological operations, it's very easy. Once you get one or two people to say something, then it's very easy to make other people believe that they saw something they didn't see. This is that's basic psychology. There's been lots of studies done on that, where they get people together in a group, and one person is adamant that they saw something, and then the other people start to question themselves. And then what does the mind do? The mind starts to generate the image, or generate the memory, quote unquote, right? And so then all the other people at the table start to say, wait a minute, I think I remember that too. And then we have all these people saying the towers went down. So that's something too. That's something that, like, the government does, and that's how, like, psychological operations can be so successful. Angel says heart. So if most of your energy is in your heart, then the mind should be clear, or the mind will be really quiet. So when you say, I come out and someone is about to kill me, and then and when I'm in either theta or delta state, and I come out when someone is about to kill me, I go to sleep with happy thoughts and into meditation. So happy thoughts, even the idea of a thought, is coming from the mind, right? So ideally, if your energy is mostly in the heart, then the mind will be clear. So is there somewhere where you bought into the idea that you are your mind, right? And so, but when you're having ideas, that's when you're sleeping or connecting in meditation about someone trying to kill you, then that's coming from the subconscious mind, or you're picking up on energy somewhere, or it's coming from somewhere within your mind. So that means that you're in the mind, right? And so when you connect in meditation, right? So if you decide, right, like, I want to experience things, or I want to have visions, or I want to remote view, or when I want to connect, if you want to connect to, I don't know, if you want to connect, or if you want to have some sort of experience in meditation, like, I want to go into nature or whatever, right? It's going to be, you're making an intention, and it's going to be sometimes going into the mind deeper, right? And because you're asking the mind to generate an experience for you, or a memory, or something that you, or replicate something that you've seen before, right? And then you can, if you can do that, then you can ground into the heart center. But maybe what would it feel like, Angel, if you tried to meditate but didn't attempt to see anything or hear anything, or just sit with yourself? And can you, it might be a challenge, but can you try to observe the mind without being attached to it, and see how that feels? Because we're always, all of us are always trying to come back to the heart. There's never a perfect, no one's ever going to be like, yeah, I always come from the heart like 1,000% of the time. I don't know, like, I don't know if that's I mean, I guess it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible, but when you're living here, when we're experiencing on planet Earth, it would be hard to do, right? But a lot of people, we come back and forth into the mind, out of the heart and into the mind, and back and forth. And that's kind of what like spiritual awakening is, right? So maybe try just observing the mind, and practice just sitting in the heart, and maybe not trying to fall asleep or going into a theta or delta state, just sitting there and seeing what happens. Peter says, too many stories to list since childhood. One memorable was once I had a saucer craft come to visit, only 3 to 400, I don't know if you meant feet or meters away above a tree, colored lights. I felt a connection with the pilot. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Let's see. Tom had an awakening in 2007 after a doctor told me, if you really are an alcoholic, AA is your only hope. I went and it worked and is working. I tracked down this doctor this year and met with her in person at her office. She looked younger than I remembered her from 2007. I offered my hand to her. She took it. I looked in her eyes and said, "You saved my life." She smiled and said, "Be well." I left. I think she might be an angel. Yay, Tom, congratulations on your sobriety. I think we're all angels, aren't we? Either we're all angels, or none of us are. You know what's interesting? Like, if you really dug deep enough, the people that challenge you the most are actually angels. That's a wild realization to have. Francis says, in response to your question about what makes me feel like ascension, about what ascension feels like, it's exhausting and tiring without any particular reason. Been doing what I always do, daily activities, nothing that stands out like strenuous exercises. What do you think? Well, I feel like it can be tiring and exhausting. There's always like health. I'm not one to like, there's always health stuff too. Like, you can have vitamin deficiencies and stuff like that. So that's not something that's totally out of the question. But when you I think it's a prolonged feeling of being tired and exhausted, it might be you're taking on other people's energies that are draining you. A lot of times we have this belief that we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves for other people, or like be selfless and put other people before ourselves. And you know that saying, like, when the airplane's going down, you're supposed to put your oxygen mask on first so then you can help other people? It's really more like that. But if there's a belief of, oh, you just put everyone before you and you're selfless, and that's going to leave you feeling really drained and tired and exhausted. So if it were me, I would start to ask myself more questions of why I feel that way. When you release energy, when you release lower vibrational or denser energy, you feel lighter and you actually become more energetic, right? And maybe the body needs some time, like a day or two or 3 days or 4 days, to rest and recover. But if it's a long period of time, right? Also, when I've done things like, if I ever had a job, I don't know why it works this way, but if I ever had a job, or I'll use this as an example. If I had ever had a job, or if you were in a relationship with someone that was a big energy drainer, or if you had a job that you just felt like sucked the life out of you, that's a sign that maybe those choices aren't for you, right? Because really when we're talking about being tired and exhausted, we're draining energy, we're losing energy somewhere. So that's kind of what I think about that. Angela says, I have been feeling lost since experiencing 3 significant losses in December. I need to go back into my spiritual path. Do you ever have any thoughts on what I might be missing or is blocking me? I'm sorry, Angela. Let me get a drink. Everyone is always on the spiritual path because everyone is a spirit. And so there's no way you can't be on the spiritual path, right? So everyone's on the spiritual path. So you haven't knocked off, you haven't been you're still on the spiritual path. This is just the losses and the grief are part of your spiritual path. When you say losses, can you be more specific? Like, is it people who have died, or did you lose a job, or can you be more specific about that? You don't have to, Angela. Just let me know either way. Remember, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Yes. And that goes for even people who don't live on earth. They are also spiritual beings having a physical experience. Dior wants to share her story too, so I will read what she wrote. Dior, I started this journey in 2020 when I asked myself the question, who am I? After 3 years, I think I've been down a few too many rabbit holes. And in the past 6 months, I think I've learned the most about myself through journaling and asking myself questions. Yay, Dior. Dior says, Megan, I have a quick question. In the past 2 days, I've been saying to myself, as you walk the path, it will reveal itself. I feel like I've started walking in a new direction in life, and I'm going down a new path with the intention that opportunities that I've never expected are going to come to me. Any advice that I should know? Well, I feel like you got a message for yourself, right? So I feel like you should trust yourself or trust your own intuition. I feel like is it I feel like, I've said this to you before, Dior, too. It's like you get messages or you have a deep inner knowing, and then there's a tendency, we all do this, to second guess yourself. So I feel like don't second guess yourself. I think that's the advice that you should know. Angela says all 3 were deaths: mom in December, baby sister in June, and a friend baby sister in June and a friend in June. I'm sorry, Angela. It feels like, and so when we lose someone, basically what happens is, to our reality or to our world, it's like a big ego death, right? And I've heard this phrase, like, death doesn't happen to the person who dies, right? Because they're gone, they've transformed and gone into a different place. Death happens to the people around them, right? Like, they're the ones who have to deal with the loss. It's a loss for the people around them. So anytime that happens, and you lose someone, it's basically an ego death, or and it is a great example of an ego death. So thank you for being open and sharing that. Your life is not going to, it has drastically changed, and is not going to be the way you thought it should be, or the way, basically that you planned it out, right? So that's basically in a nutshell what everyone is going through. Like we all have these ideas of what life should look like versus what's actually happening, and the space between the two causes a lot of grief, angst, and sadness, right? So basically this is something, it's like you've had three ego deaths at once. And this is, it sounds strange to say, but this, everything is for the highest good, right? So I firmly believe that you'll come out of this stronger and more resilient and happier and closer to yourself. And so I think it's natural to take some time to deal with the energy, or to deal with the emotions that come up. And it doesn't do anyone any good. Also, I cry like all the time. I should mention this because, when people pass away, you cry, right? So cry as much as you can, because the tears like actually release energy. There's a reason why we do that. So I don't feel like there's any like shame in sitting around and being sad and crying, and eventually the emotions or that energy will go on. And if it's for, so I don't feel like a lot of time has passed, because it's only September 1st, so this is like literally 2 months ago, right? So I don't feel like it's a prolonged amount of time, right? And so, but if it's like 2 years from now, if it's a constant thing, then there's something where our ego is having a hard time understanding that, or understanding something, right? So there's a complex that we're trying to let go of. And really what these spirits have done, or these souls have done, is through their passing helped us release part of our energy or our density in our mind and come back to ourselves. So this is really the great purpose behind all of this, right? And so these beautiful beings are not their minds, they're not their bodies, they're souls, right? So they live on. So where does that leave you, Angela? Do you feel, and you don't have to answer me, these are just the questions that I would ask myself, right? This is basically the like one of the hardest things that people have to deal with on this plane, right? Do you feel alone? Like, do you feel alone? Do you feel that's all that really comes to mind, is feeling alone. um where is it triggering you? And give that part of yourself love. And usually these are things that are happening in childhood. In 3D, right, we very are much connected, because our bodies feel so heavy, are connected to the body. We basically start to believe that we are our bodies, right? And so it's very easy to believe that we could be alone, because we believe that we are the physical, right? So that's basically what death does. It's help us transform that idea. So I hope that helps, Angela. Sending you love. um Nicole says, let me refresh this. Nicole says, hold on, let me get a drink first. I can see from today's perspective that the journey has been lifelong, but I didn't really get in it until 2019, 2020. Always thought things like organized religion, church, school didn't make sense. I had no other perspective, so I thought there was just something wrong with me. So I did the normal thing, worked my ass off, built a career and a life that you're supposed to build and achieve. The harder I worked and more I gave up, the further the carrot moved away. Yes, it's like chasing the dragon. She says, I was at a point where I had all I thought I wanted. All I really had, though, was a growing sick feeling in my stomach that I couldn't shake. I walked away from it all and continued to walk through Dark Night of the Soul or Giant Ego Death for about 10 years. I understand now that I was waking up to all of the trauma, programming, and brainwashing that we are all in, trying to disconnect from all of it while simultaneously building something new while still in IT. I can't unlearn all I've seen, read, watched, listened to about what this world is really about since 2019. It's been nothing but light bulb moments for me. The world finally makes sense. Not easy, but makes way more sense. You know what comes to mind when I read your story, Nicole, is that the truth, like I've talked a lot about the truth on my YouTube channel, is that when you're going through a spiritual awakening, like different experiences that you've had and reflecting, like your personal truth continues to evolve. What you thought was real and what you thought was true becomes no longer, and you let it go and you evolve from there. So that's what I feel like when I read your statement. I think that I'm a monkey, but I'm not quite sure, Tom. Tom asks, what Chinese horoscope are you? You're welcome, Angela. Cheryl says, Cheryl's cat is funny. Megan, you have mentioned before about one side of the body being higher in some people. Will it correct itself as we release density? Yeah. Like some people carry more energy on their left side, or some people carry more energy on their right side. And I think it's like, it's a imbalance of divine feminine or divine masculine energy. Like some people are more wounded in one versus the other. um I forget which side of the body is masculine and which side is feminine right now in the moment, but um um I lost my train of thought. Like people, like for example, like a woman who um is in a state who is very like boss babe, controlling, overachiever, overproductive, um high performance, rigid, hard, aggressive. Like that's a sign of being like wounded, and she might carry more energy on one side of her body. One side of the body is compensating for the other. um because yeah, that's how I understand it. Let's see. Nicole also says, I'm not sure I feel a ton, and I guess that's the point, really. I spend a ton of time in my head, but feeling is a challenge, and it's evident during your guided meditations that I use. I effort to feel the love. Is that the case for all blockages? You know, sometimes love is like there's also a we think of love in the mind. Um uh Amazon's here. I just got a notification on my phone. It's distracting me. I said this before, like sometimes we think of love like as something that happens in the mind, and like we've created this idea of what we think love is. And so there's that. So I don't think, you know, when you're trying to feel the love in your mind, like, oh, I don't know that you can, or it would just be your idea of what love is, right? So um so yeah, that's my thoughts on that. If you're feeling like, if you keep thinking in the mind, she says, I spend a ton of time in my head, but feeling is a challenge, and it is evident during your guided meditations that I effort to feel the love. Is that the case for all blockages? um I wonder why you spend so much. So this is the thing too. We've also bought into the idea that we're our minds. So, and that can even come from like coming into your body too. That can originate from there. Um, I would ask myself questions, Nicole. Ask your mind questions. The mind will answer you. Kimberly Jean says, my son is struggling. Okay, so she goes into talk about how her son is struggling. Can you offer any advice, understanding of what's going on with this kid? Poor kid, thank you. I can pick up on your energy, Kimberly, or I can help offer support to you with your energy. I feel like you know, there's this concept too that we're overly responsible for other people, and I understand, this is your child, so that's a natural thing, but he's a spirit too, right? He has a soul too, and he has people looking over him, and the whole universe is behind him, right? And the whole universe is behind you too. So when and where did you lose faith in the universe and decide to take it into your own hands, right? Because what I pick up on is the entire world is on your shoulders to help this kid or to save this kid, right? And basically what he's doing, and what anyone who's going through a hard time, is they're basically learning about themselves, discovering themselves, finding their way back to themselves, no matter what it looks like on the outside, right? So this is where all doing. So maybe just take a deep breath and take a load off because it's our mind, or it's our mind that wants control, right? But where did you start to believe, or did you start to believe that the entire weight of the world is on your shoulders alone, right? So maybe if that resonates with you, I would look there, maybe. Nicole says, yes, exactly. Tom says, do you study things? I mean, in terms of reading lots of books and doing research. What do? I mostly just take care of the horses and ride the horses. And then sometimes I post online and then make my videos and hang out with you guys and try to help you guys, and that's really what I do. No, I don't spend a lot of time reading or doing books. If I want to research a certain topic, then yeah, maybe I will go into it, but I kind of sometimes have like a cheat sheet. Marielle says, can you speak a little bit about Kundalini awakening? For me, it has happened in quite a different way than what the story tells, where you feel it in your spine. I have had and still have a massive awakening process. My Kundalini symptoms is more like energy running through my body 24/7 for long periods of time. It's like having electricity running through my body, but I don't feel it in my spine. Is that Kundalini as well, or is it something else coming from source? Yay, Marielle, that's beautiful. That is exactly how I would have described it. That's great. Yeah, I can feel it in my spine. So the Kundalini is basically your energy, your spiritual energy, right? And there's this idea that and sometimes you can mesh energies with other people where it becomes like a spiral. And then there's this idea that there's another half to the spiral. Like some people talk about, like there's a divine union, right? And then you spiral up, and that's ascension. And like a divine union can be compared to the Holy Trinity, body, mind, and soul, right? That experience. So, but you can have a Kundalini awakening on your own. But when you feel like, you can feel your energy like vibrating in your hands and vibrating throughout your whole body. That's you. That's the energy that is you. I don't believe that anyone has the power to initiate a Kundalini awakening for you. Um, I believe that your soul or your spirit initiates it itself. Now, you might attract experiences or attract people into your life that help assist you in doing that, right? But really, you're the one who initiates your own awakening, right? So we can take I'll just take the Kundalini word out of it. When we talk about awakening, only you can awaken yourself because you are a part of God, you are source. There's no authority figure over you that can say, like, wave their wand and be like, yep, it's time to awaken. Boop, there you go. It doesn't really work like that. You initiate that yourself and you do that yourself. Oh, it's Santa. Hey, Santa, that I can understand. I'm worried sick for my son. Just wish I could take all his problems on me. Well, you kind of are, right? So that's why it feels like there's the weight of the world on his shoulders. So are they okay, if we're all I'll explain it this way. If we're all creators, right? And we're all part of one system, right? On a very high level, right? I know people can wear scary masks and things can look weird, right? But on a very high level, right? If we're all creators, if we're all part of God and if we're all God, can you really have a problem? Do problems really exist? Do they exist? Or is it something that you've created for yourself to get to know yourself or to bring yourself back to yourself? Right? So is it really a problem? So but what I said earlier, what I said before too, that's part of it as well. But anyways, that's my take on it. Man, I feel like an overachiever today because I'm just blazing through. um, let me see if there's any more comments that I accidentally missed. And there might be some from last time too as well. Well, Tom says that Psionics camera you recommended is outstanding. Yeah, you should take videos of, and did you get, is it the night vision one? I've run out of my kombucha. Santa says hearts. Oh, I skipped Lauren's question. Hi, Megan. I hope this question makes sense. When a loved one passes on, if they choose to reincarnate, is their soul still able to be contacted on the other side? Thinking of past loved ones recently. Well, I think that, first of all, there's a universal consciousness, right? So technically, we're all part of one, right? And so sometimes energy, I believe, if that person has reincarnated, there's part of them, like we all have, our energy is so big that it's not able to fit inside of our bodies, right? So we're all still connected through to one source, right? So there'll be energy that steps forward, and in the Akashic records and in that energy is information that will let you know that yes, that life still exists on the other side. But I think more often than not that people incarnate as groups or as soul groups, because they basically say, hey, like, we've all had all of these lifetimes together and we all have these things that we want to continue to learn and grow and work out together in a physical experience, so we're gonna all incarnate together and so we can work it out. So I think that a lot of times people incarnate as soul groups and have lifetimes over and over again together, and that's why this thought comes to mind. You know, you ever have someone in your life that just annoys you so bad, you're like, ugh, you again. It's like that. Oftentimes those are the people we've had so many lifetimes with, like tons and tons and tons. So that's kind of like my that's kind of my take on it. Um oh, I skipped some of Jamie's questions too. Loli says, sometimes feel like, why did I awaken when I'm around people with no care in the world, but then I'm thankful I am seeing the great movement. Well, really, we awaken to ourselves and we awaken for ourselves, right? So if we need other, and I understand what you're saying, but if we need other people to awaken so that we feel good about being awake, are we really awake? Because that's still saying the power is outside of me. I need everyone to believe or think the same way I do so that I feel okay or I feel better, right? And that's a condition of the mind. So what are people's definition of awakening? And some people believe that when everyone decides that they're going to vote blue or everyone decides that they're going to vote red and we're all thinking the same, then everybody's awake. And that's not awakening. When everybody is connected through the heart, or when people start to learn to connect through their hearts and not their heads, that's my definition of a mass awakening, right? And so beliefs of the mind are kind of or I'll say it this way, like meeting, if we want everyone to think like us or see things the way that we do, that indicates a hive consciousness, right? And for a long time we believed, there's a subconscious belief that that was the goal, that we all need to think the same and act the same and be connected through the mind. And that's reflective of how our consciousness has been manipulated by regressive extraterrestrials by trying to get us to think the same and act the same. And then but that's not a sign of of awakening. That's a sign of hive consciousness. um Jamie says, my hair is very thin lately and not growing. Do you pick up on anything that I can do to help get it healthy again? Well, again, that's something that we is there anything really wrong with your hair? What's wrong with having thin hair? Is it really truly unhealthy? What is the mind saying about that? What is the story? Because we all a lot of women, basically everyone has bought into this idea that you're supposed to look like a Barbie doll or a supermodel. And so what does that mean? I would dig deep more into that, because when you look through the eyes of the spirit, right, you're like, wow, I'm beautiful. And I'm perfect, and it doesn't matter what you look like, right? But when you look through the eyes of the ego finds flaws, you know. So that's kind of my take on that. So yeah. Well, I hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the weather wherever you are. I love you guys, and I'll be back.